Hey everyone, welcome to Chapter 9. And in this chapter, we're going to talk about dictionaries and sets, and then we're going to finish it off by talking about how to serialize those objects and write them to a file and read them back. In this first video, we're just going to cover dictionaries. Now, what you're going to find is this chapter definitely grows on things that you've already learned thus far in this class. So while we are covering a couple of new concepts, they're not extraordinarily new, and they're just going to build on things that you already know. So you're going to find that this goes pretty quick. And what you're also going to want to find is you're going to want to continue to do the practices and to jump in and just get coding on these things. It's the best way to learn them. This is only just to give you some overview of these items, but your real learning is when you get into and start doing the practices and the assignments. Make sure you're using these items. All right, so let's jump in. Let's talk about dictionary. A dictionary is an object that stores a collection of data. And what's really unique about the dictionary is that each element consists of a value and a key pair. So think of what we would traditionally look at as a dictionary, right? A book where we have a key, which is the word, and then the value, which is what the word stands for. You know, what is that definition of the word? Well, same thing with dictionaries. We have a key value, and then we have a value that goes with that key. So as you can see here, I'm going to point out how we do this. We say dictionary. This is going to be our variable name equals, and then in curly brackets, we have our key and value pairs separated by a colon. And each of these key value pairs is then separated by a comma. So in this case, we have key 1 and the value is val1. And key 2, val2 is its value. When we want to retrieve a value from a dictionary, unlike we've done before with list, we're going to, instead of giving it an index, we're going to give it the key. So the general format for retrieving the value from a dictionary is to call the dictionary by its variable name and then supply the key value. Now, if we find that the key is not in the dictionary, a key error exception will get thrown. So make sure you know that that key is in that dictionary. You can test whether a key is in the dictionary using the N or not N. Again, we're pretty familiar with these particular operators. We've used them in lists as well. And that is how we prevent key error. So typically we'll test to see whether a key is in a dictionary, and if it is, then we actually retrieve that item. When we want to add elements to an existing dictionary, similar to the list, but the difference is here, instead of an index, we're going to supply a key. We're going to add new pairs by just that. Call the dictionary by its variable name, right here. Give it a new key, and supply the value. Now, if the key exists in the dictionary, the value associated with it will change. That's the important piece here to understand. Dictionaries can only have one key per dictionary. So if you were to, let's say, assign this dictionary just a bunch of numbers for the keys, you cannot have two dictionary items, two dictionary entries with the number 3. The key 3 can only exist once in the dictionary. So if you were to do this line here with a new key value, it's going to be added to the dictionary. If it already exists, it's going to replace the current value of that key. If we want to delete a key, then we'll call the DEL, standing for delete, the variable name of the dictionary, and the key that we want to delete. So as usual, if that key does not exist, we will get that key error exception. So typically we want to always do a test. So we want to test it, and then we want to do the delete if it exists. Again, this should feel very familiar to what you've seen previous in uh, the list object that we have as well here in Python. Just like list, we can get some particular functions out of the list. We can call the len function, which stands for length, to obtain the number of elements in the dictionary. And remember, it is, well, it's zero based for the dictionary, and really that doesn't even exist because of the fact that we call it by keys, we don't call it by index. The len is still going to tell us the full value of the length. So if you have 10 objects in your dictionary, you will get 10 as the len, the len function. Keys must be immutable objects, but associated values can be any type of object. And what they're saying here is when you're assigning your dictionaries, remember we have a key value pair. Let's go up here. And so what they're saying is these keys are immutable. What does immutable mean? I know, Professor Waits, I know what immutable is. It means you cannot change it. You can change the value, but you cannot change the key. That kind of plays back into what we were talking about when we were adding elements. If the key exists, it's going to change the value because the key is immutable. But if it doesn't exist, if the key does not exist, then we will add the value. It is interesting to know that the values can be of different types. All right, so there we go. Values can be of different type. Just like the previous list that we've talked about in tuples, we can iterate over them. We can do that using the for loop to iterate over a dictionary. We use the brackets. So to create an empty dictionary, and why do we want to know about creating an empty dictionary? Well, as we've done before, if you want to, let's say, copy the dictionary, then one of the ways to do it is to create an empty dictionary and then copy each element into that new dictionary. You can also do the same thing with concatenating dictionaries. So here we want to call a empty dictionary. So we're going to essentially say my dictionary equals and just empty curly brackets. You can also use the built-in function dict, which stands for dictionary, and elements can be added to the dictionary as program executes. That's very similar to what we're talking up here about adding items, right? So where do we go? There we go, adding items. So all it's saying is you can add items to a dictionary as a program's running. We want to use that for loop to iterate over the dictionary. Here it is, the for. This is the target key. So as you are running over, as you're iterating over this dictionary, every item it goes and looks at, it's going to put the key, not the value, but the key into the target key here. So what's that? Why is that important? It's because it doesn't put the value, it puts the key. So you still have to, if you want the value of each item in the dictionary, you still are going to have to call that dictionary with the key it supplied you to get the value. So that's how you iterate over a dictionary with a for loop. Some additional methods that we can use on dictionary. We can clear, which deletes all the elements in a dictionary, leaving it empty. We can call the get method, which is similar to using the brackets with the key value. What's interesting about the get method, and one of the reasons why sometimes we'll use the get method instead, is if we don't have that key in the dictionary, what we supply as the default is what's going to get returned. So we can say, hey, look for this key, but if you don't find it, just go ahead and hand me this default value back. Again, it's definitely an alternative to the square brackets, but it will not raise the key error because instead of the key error being raised, it's going to hand us back the default. The items method returns all the dictionary keys and associated values. What's it's returned as a dictionary view. Dictionary view is slightly different than a dictionary. Each element in the dictionary view is a tuple, which contains a key and its associated value. Remember what we said about tuples? They're immutable, so you cannot change it. We can use a for loop to iterate over these tuples in the sequence. Just like any other tuple, we can iterate over them. We can use a variable which retrieves the tuplet, or we can use two variables which retrieves both the key and the value. Additional dictionary methods, we can use the keys method, which returns all the dictionary keys as a sequence. We can use the pop method. Now, the pop method returns values associated with specified key and removes that key value pair from the dictionary. So it gives it back and then gets rid of it out of the dictionary. Here we have that default again. So what happens here is if you call the pop and the key does not exist, it's going to hand you back the default, but nothing is going to happen to the dictionary because it had nothing to find to pop off the dictionary. We can say pop item. The difference with pop and pop item is it returns as a tuple the key value pair that was last added to the dictionary. It's the last added to the dictionary. The method also removes the key value pair from the dictionary. So the difference there is that pop method returns the particular key we're looking for. The pop item, as you can see, has no parameters. And so it's just going to return the key item pair of the last item added to the dictionary. Value method returns all the dictionary values as a sequence. So similar to the keys method, this values method returns all the values, not the keys, but the values. And you can iterate over those using a for loop as well. Here is a nice clear view of those different methods we just talked about. It's the same table in your book as 9.1. And then just like with list, dictionary comprehensions. Dictionary comprehensions are an expression that reads a sequence of inputs elements and uses those input elements to produce a dictionary. In a sense, it's just like using a for loop, but right there with the dictionary itself. Just like list, dictionaries replace numerous different types of for loops. So here's an example. Using a for loop, we have in the first example where we've got this list of numbers, and look, because it's using the square brackets, we know it's a list, and yet we've created an empty dictionary because we've got the curly brackets here, these curly brackets. And so we're saying for each item in numbers, which we are now doing a comprehension on, we're doing a for loop on those numbers, we're saying take the square of each item. Take the square of each item and store it in our squares. So when we then print out squares, we can see that the key 1 has a value of 1. Key 2 has a value of 4. Key 3, value of 9. 4, the value of 16. We can do the same thing using a comprehension. And we love comprehensions. I know it. Everyone's like, yay, we get to do comprehensions. So here, instead of creating that empty directory, that empty dictionary, we're creating a squares. We have the curly bracket there, as you can see, and we're saying, let's separate this. We have the for loop here, which is for each item in numbers. So as it goes over the numbers, and because numbers is a list, it's going to put each number in the list. It's going to say item. Let me erase here so we can see this clearly. All right. It's going to put the item into the key, as well as item here in the value, but it's going to square it. So each time 1, 2, 3, and 4 are going to go into item, but it's also going to go into item where it's squared. So now we have the resulting of 1 being squared, 2 being squared, 3 being squared, 4 being squared. Just like a list, we'll continue with this thought process. Here we've separated, here is the iteration expression, it's the for loop. So for each item in this list of numbers, we're going to store it as the key there and the value. Now, we don't have to store it, we don't have to use it in both places, just so we know that, right? We could say something, we could have an iterator here. I mean, not an iterator, but an accumulator right here, right? Something that, 1, 2, 3, 4 keeps going up by 1, and then do something with the item here by itself. This was just easy that we could do it in both. But you can use item, whatever this item is, you can use it in both the key value or just the key or just the value. Here's another example of a dictionary comprehension. This one is using an existing list of strings. It creates a dictionary in which the keys are the string in the list and the values are the length of the string. So again, we're going to use the item in both sides of both the key value pair. We don't have to, but we're going to in this time. So here we have a list of strings. We know that because of the square brackets. And Jeremy, Kate, and Peg are in this list. And so we're saying for every item in names, take that, make the key the actual name, and the length the value. So let's get rid of some of this ink here. So Jeremy is a length of 6, Kate is a length of 4, and Peg, which is the key, its value now is the length of 3. We can also use a comprehension just to make a copy of a dictionary. So here we have a dictionary because we've got the brackets. That's dictionary 1. And then we are creating a new dictionary, but we are using comprehension. And in a comprehension, we can say 4k comma v. Now this variable name could be anything we want. We could, except for any words that Python uses. So we could say my key, my value there. We could say 4k in v in dictionary items, and then we can use those separately over here. But remember, we got to give it that colon to separate the key value pairs. So what we've done here is we've done nothing but copy this dictionary 1 into dictionary 2. A1, B2, C3. Previous, we learned in comprehensions, we can have 3 parts to our comprehensions, up to 3 parts, and that is adding an if value. So let's just jump down here to the code. We've got our for statement, then we've got our if statement, and then finally we have, let me see if I can change colors here. Whoop. Purple. We've got the use of the key value pair. So in this, we're saying, hey, if go through each item in this population, and if the value, right? So if the value is greater than, what is that, 2 million? Okay, greater than 2 million, then put it into this key value pair. So what effectively this is going to do is going to go through that entire list of dictionary of population, and it's going to look for any item, any value that is over 2 million. So here we have New York is the first one, then Los Angeles, Chicago, and Houston. And if it's over that 2 million, it's going to go ahead and just simply pull it and put it into the new the new dictionary that we've created here. All right, so that is it on dictionaries. When we come back, we're going to talk about sets. Again, you're going to find that sets are pretty similar to lists in dictionaries, but there's some neat little things we can do with sets. So when you come back, we'll talk about that. Thanks.